Beneath the silent, sweeping deserts of Utah lies a place that no one will ever enter again. It's not forbidden by ancient curse or legend, but by a modern tragedy that turned a thrill-seeker's paradise into a permanent tomb. This is the story of the Nutty Putty cave, and the man it claimed forever. In 2009, a young medical student named John Edward Jones ventured into its depths, seeking one last adventure. He never came back. This is the haunting story of what happened deep within the earth, in a place that now holds one of its own. The Nutty Putty Cave, first discovered in 1960, was never for the faint of heart. It was a geological labyrinth, a network of tight, winding passages coated in a slippery, unforgiving clay that gave the cave its name. For decades, it was a popular spot for amateur cavers and local youth, a place to test one's courage against the unyielding rock. The names of its passages alone were enough to signal the challenge: the Scout Eater, the Birth Canal, and Ed's Push. These weren't just quirky labels. They were warnings whispered among those who dared to crawl through them. The cave had a history. It had seen multiple rescues over the years, instances where cavers got stuck, lost, or exhausted, requiring outside help to return to the surface. In fact, it had been temporarily closed before due to safety concerns. But its allure was too strong, and it was reopened in early 2009, just months before that fateful November night. The cave was a known map of traps, and on that day it was waiting. John Edward Jones was not a reckless daredevil. He was a bright, charismatic 26-year-old, a dedicated medical student at the University of Virginia, a loving husband to his wife, Emily, and the proud father of a young daughter, with another baby on the way. He was known for his optimism, his deep faith, and his love for family and adventure. He had grown up exploring caves with his family in Utah and had a deep respect for the natural world. He was visiting his family for the Thanksgiving holiday and the trip to Nutty Putty with his brother, Josh. And a group of friends was meant to be a nostalgic return to the adventures of their youth. It was a chance to reconnect, to share a story, to feel that familiar rush one last time before his life as a doctor began. It was a simple decision, a choice for one more memory. A decision that would, in the most tragic way imaginable, change everything forever. The evening was cold and clear as the group of 11 cavers arrived at the cave entrance around 8 p.m. on November 24th. Spirits were high. Equipped with headlamps and a sense of excitement, they descended into the familiar darkness. For over an hour, they navigated the known passages, crawling and squeezing through the tight spaces. Around 9:45 p.m., John decided to find a challenge he remembered from his youth: the famously narrow passage known as the Birth Canal. Thinking he'd found it, he entered a tight, unexplored shaft head first, using his hips and stomach to wiggle his way forward. But this wasn't the Birth Canal. It was a dead end, an unmapped section of the cave that would soon be known as Ed's Push. He slid deeper and deeper, until the passage angled sharply downward. Suddenly, he was stuck. The space was barely 10 inches wide and 18 inches high. He was wedged, upside down, at a 70-degree angle, 150 feet from the entrance and nearly 400 feet underground. His brother Josh was the first to find him. He grabbed John's ankles and pulled, but John only slid deeper, held fast by the unforgiving rock. Panic set in. Josh raced back toward the surface, a desperate journey through the winding tunnels, to call for help. By 11 p.m., the first rescuers were on the scene, beginning a battle against time, gravity, and the Earth itself. The rescue operation that unfolded was one of the most complex and heartbreaking in Utah's history. Over the next 27 hours, more than 135 rescuers would descend into the cave, a relentless army fighting for a single life. The conditions were nightmarish. The passage was so tight that only one person could reach John at a time, and the clay walls were fragile and crumbly. Their first plan was to tie a rope around his ankles and pull. A rescuer managed to reach him, secure the rope, and with a team of 8 people on the other end, they began to pull. But the angle was all wrong. Pulling put immense strain on John's body, and the friction against the rock was too great. They needed a new approach. The team decided to install a sophisticated system of pulleys and anchors, drilling directly into the cave walls to create leverage. It was a delicate, dangerous process. They finally got the system rigged and began to hoist John upwards. For a moment, there was hope. He moved, inch by agonizing inch. They could talk to him, give him water. But then, the unthinkable happened. One of the anchors, drilled into the soft, unreliable clay, ripped free from the wall. The entire system failed. The rope went slack, and John slid back down, even deeper and more tightly wedged than before. The sound of the failing rig was followed by a crushing silence, a silence heavier and more suffocating than the tons of earth above them. The earth would not let him go. The brutal reality of John's situation was a matter of pure, cruel physics. Being trapped upside down is one of the most dangerous positions for the human body. Gravity, a force we live with every second, had become his enemy. Blood began to pool in his head, increasing the pressure on his brain and eyes. His heart was forced to work overtime, straining to pump blood against gravity, away from his lower body and back up to his vital organs. But the most immediate threat was to his lungs. In that inverted, compressed position, his own organs were pressing down on his diaphragm, making it increasingly difficult to breathe. Each breath was a shallow, desperate effort. Rescuers managed to get an oxygen line and an IV to him, but these were temporary measures against an inevitable shutdown. Even with oxygen, his lungs couldn't fully expand. Even with fluids, his heart couldn't win its fight against gravity. The pressure inside his body was building, and time was running out. His prison wasn't just made of rock and clay. It was made of the fundamental laws of science. As the hours dragged on, and his body grew weaker, John's spirit remained remarkably strong. He was in pain, exhausted, and suspended in darkness, but he never lost his composure. He spoke with the rescuers, thanking them for their efforts. He was able to talk to his wife, Emily, over a police radio that was patched through to him. He told her he loved her, that he loved their children, and that he was sorry. Surrounded by strangers who were risking their lives for him, he prayed. He sang hymns, his faint voice joining with the voices of the rescuers in the cold, dark tunnel. There was a profound sense of peace and acceptance in his final hours. As his condition deteriorated and his breathing became more labored, his words became softer. Just before midnight on November 25th, nearly 28 hours after he first entered the cave, one of the rescuers with him heard his final, quiet words. He said, "It's okay, I'm ready." And then, his voice fell silent forever. John Edward Jones was gone. The rescue mission tragically became a recovery mission. But even that proved impossible. The team of engineers and geologists who assessed the situation came to a grim conclusion. It was simply too dangerous to try and retrieve John's body. The passage that held him was incredibly unstable, and any attempt to widen it with explosives or heavy equipment could cause a catastrophic collapse, endangering the lives of the recovery team. The decision was made with the full support and blessing of John's family. They decided that the cave he had loved as a boy would become his final resting place. Over the next week, the team worked to permanently seal the cave. The passage where John lay was filled with rock, and then a permanent concrete plug was poured into the main access tunnel near the entrance. On December 2, 2009, Nutty Putty Cave was officially and permanently closed to the public. A bronze plaque was placed at the sealed entrance, a memorial to the man who lay within. It now marks his grave, a final, somber monument beneath the vast Utah sky. Even sealed, the story of Nutty Putty Cave doesn't end. A strange phenomenon has been reported by locals and visitors to the site. They say that the cave still breathes. A low, humming sound can sometimes be heard emanating from the sealed entrance. A wind that seems to whisper through the invisible cracks in the rock. Some say it sounds like a voice, an echo from deep within the earth. Geologists explain this as a simple pressure releaser from the vast cave system equalizing with the atmosphere outside. A natural process known as a blowing cave. But for others, for those who know the story, it's something more. It's a reminder, a presence. They call it the cave keeping its promise, or perhaps a final whisper from the man it holds. Whether it's science or spirit, the silence of Nutty Putty is never truly empty. John Edward Jones entered the earth seeking adventure, and in the end he became a part of its memory. His story is a powerful and humbling reminder of the raw power of nature and the fragility of human life. It speaks to the courage of the rescuers who fought against impossible odds and the profound love of a family who found grace in the midst of unspeakable tragedy. Some caves echo with the sounds of dripping water and wind. This one whispers a story of adventure, of loss, and of a final, peaceful surrender. Nutty Putty remembers. Thank you for joining us for this story. Every place on earth has a story to tell, some beautiful, some haunting. If you want to explore more true mysteries hidden across our world, be sure to subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you being here. Stay curious and stay safe.